with Rider of Dragons, now you kind of get to explore like this more like dangerous and darker side of Starshine Valley, which obviously you don't see in the cozier stories. And you kind of also get to see like the baby dragons when they've grown up into adults and how they behave in that way. I think you should write the story that you want to write first and foremost. I think so many times like you can kind of get caught up in like what type of story like is doing well like in the market, or like what like will like readers enjoy, or like I would say to any author that you shouldn't read your reviews. I think the thing with reviews is that it's so subjective. And I think it's a funny thing about being human that 10 people can say nice things to you, but if one person says something slightly mean, you're not going to remember the 10 nice things. You're only going to remember the one mean thing.
To start us off, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, I'd love to. Well, first of all, thank you all for attending and thank you for having me. My name is Aamna Qureshi. I also write as A.T. Qureshi, and I'm the author of the Baby Dragon series. So they are cozy fantasy standalone novels, all kind of set in the same universe. So you can read them in whichever order you'd like. Each book focuses on a different couple. And the first book, The Baby Dragon Cafe, is kind of a grumpy sunshine feeling with our main character, Saphira, who owns Baby Dragon Cafe, and she kind of pairs up with this grumpy gardener named Aiden to train his mischievous but very adorable baby dragon, Sparky. And then in the second book, The Baby Dragon Bakery, that follows Lavinia, who is a magical vet in training, and her kind of tumultuous romance with her childhood best friend, Theo, who is a baker. And in the third book, The Baby Dragon Bookshop, we follow Emmeline, who is a dragon roasted coffee business owner, and her rival, Luke, who owns a chimera roasted coffee business, as they kind of both vie for the same investment. So it's kind of rivals / enemies to lovers.
Oh, I must say, I read it recently, the final one. Oh, not the final one now. Now you've announced another one. Amazing. No, I read it and I absolutely adored it. I love the trope.
Thank you.
It was an amazing read. And I was just saying to the audience before, like anything that's based in a bookshop or a romance related to a bookshop, it's the best ones. Amazing. So to start us off then, would let me open my, there we go, perfect. When did you first discover your love for writing?
Oh, so I discovered my love for writing pretty early on, I would say. Since I learned how to read, I loved reading. So about like 6, 7 years old, I just loved stories. I loved, kind of escaping into these worlds and, going on adventures with these characters. And kind of pretty soon after that, I thought it would be cool to write my own stories. So I think the first time I wrote something, I was about like 7 or 8 years old, and I wrote it in like my little sparkly notebook with my glitter gel pens. And then I went and typed it up on my dad's computer. I printed it out and kind of folded the pages into a little book, and then went around my house bothering everyone to read my story. So yeah, pretty early on, I think it just naturally grew from my love of reading, this natural desire to want to write my own stories and kind of have a hand at that kind of magic.
Oh, that sounds amazing. That's a lovely way to go in it. I'm a teacher, so hearing that from a young age, that's amazing. Yeah. So obviously you told us about your love writing. So obviously you write a range of stories. You do normal, like you've done lots of romances as well as this fantasy. So I will dip into both of them if that's okay.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a lot of questions, but we'll start with the Baby Dragon Cat series. You described it really well before, so that was one question. But where did the inspiration for that series come from?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I love reading, and I think fantasy and romance are like my 2 favorite genres that I always gravitate towards. Growing up, I definitely more heavily read like fantasy, and then kind of in my 20s, I read a lot more romances, and I love a mix of those 2 genres. And I especially love like the subgenre of like cozy fantasy romance. So I think as a writer, I always want to write the types of books that like I'd enjoy as a reader. So with the Baby Dragon series, that was kind of the starting off point, that I wanted to write a very like cozy, like fantasy romance type thing. I really like small town love stories too. I think they're so cute. Even where I live in Long Island right now, it is very small town. And I think growing up, everyone kind of has that feeling of like you want to like move away from where you are. So I kind of had that as well. And I went away for university, not like too far. And then I think I really, as I traveled more, started like appreciating my small town a lot more. And like I love it now. I love it so much more. So I kind of wanted to pull from that as well when I was creating this story. And I knew that I wanted to include like a really kind of classic like fantasy element. And I think dragons are that. But usually the types of stories that dragons are in, they're very like intense, and usually like very bloody and like, scary and stuff like that. Not very cozy. So I thought, how can I take this kind of classical fantasy element and fit it into this like hodgepodge of ideas that I was having with like the small town and the romances and the cozy. So then I had the idea of, why not include them as like baby dragons, where they're very, adorable, but mischievous as well, kind of wreaking havoc wherever they go and chaotic. And I think a little bit of the inspiration for that as well was I love like Disney princess movies. And I feel like there's always like the really fun like animal sidekick that has like a lot of personality and brings like really good humor to the story, and they're just like great characters. So I was inspired a bit by that. And then I love like Lilo and Stitch, and actually I was visiting one of my cousins, and her son was like about a year and a half at the time, and he was like the most chaotic baby I've ever met. Like you could not take your eyes off him for a second, and he would just like cause chaos. But he was so cute, like we would never get angry with him or anything. So I was like, it'd be fun to write a story with kind of baby dragons in that sense, where they are kind of causing mischief, but they're still very adorable. So you don't mind too much.
Yeah, we can't be mad with Spikey.
Exactly.
We can't imagine, though, because he was learning, and it does sound like the person you have to go to. Like, I'd love to go and take my book there and sit there if there's dragons running around, because I think that just would make the experience.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I definitely love that. So we've had a question coming from one of our audience, Sam. She said, with the baby dragon flower shop planned for 2027, are there plans for any more in the baby dragon series after that?
Yes, so it's so crazy hearing 2027 because that doesn't feel like a real year. It just took me a second to remember that we're in 2026. But yeah, so the Baby Dragon Flower Shop is the fourth Baby Dragon book that is out March 9th in the US and March 11th in the UK, 2027. So a little less than a year from now. And then we did announce as well there will be a fifth Baby Dragon book. So that will be coming out the following March. So in 2028, which also doesn't feel like a real year.
I know, it sounds like so far away. And I bet
Yeah.
obviously when you're writing it, you think, oh, it's so far away, but I bet it comes around really quick.
It does come around quickly, honestly. Because you, of course, like write the book and then like you spend a lot of time editing, you spend a lot of time like doing like the marketing and promotional stuff. So it's like strange, like when I'm like first drafting, it feels very far away and I'm like, oh, I want to like share this with everyone as kind of soon as possible. But then the editing process and everything, you're like, okay, I'm glad I didn't share this right away. Like the book definitely gets better. As well, we had announced it recently. There will be a short story in the Baby Dragon universe, a novella. So that is titled The Baby Dragon Tulip Farm. And that's actually exclusive right now for the Netherlands. They're having like an English book week in the Netherlands in October that the Baby Dragon Tulip Farm will be offered as a gift to anyone who buys like, I think 15 euro worth of books in, I believe it's the Netherlands and Belgium. So if anyone is, traveling around that time, you'd be able to access that novella early. Otherwise, I think my publisher will try to get it available to the UK and more widely. Maybe not this fall, but hopefully sometime next year.
That's amazing, though. That is lovely. And I am now contemplating booking a plane. Booking a trip because
Yeah,
But no,
I'm going to be there. They're going to send me out for the week, which I'm so excited for because I haven't been to the Netherlands before. Yeah, so I'll get to visit like a lot of bookshops and hopefully have some events and stuff. So yeah, if you end up being in the Netherlands in October, hopefully we can meet.
ooh, well, I'll see if I can do it. uh, amazing. So we've had some more questions coming in, which is amazing. One of our the members put, "Be right back, moving to the Netherlands / Belgium."
Yeah.
That was, we're all going to be there now. We're all
Yeah.
So obviously, now you just told us obviously your series is expanding. Do you ever find it really hard? Like, and if you ever come like as you've been writing, have you found it hard got stuck with any ideas or a part of it that you found really tricky to write?
Yeah, I think I want each book to feel very like different and distinct. So now, as I've written the fourth book and I'm thinking about plans for the fifth book, you kind of run out of like the big like tropes. Like I kind of did like Grumpy and Sunshine, and they're like strangers in the first book. Then for the second book, I was like, what would be kind of the complete opposite of that? These two characters who have known each other like since childhood. So they're like childhood best friends. Then in the third book, they're kind of rivals and enemies. And now the fourth book, I don't think they've announced the official synopsis. If I can give you guys a little teaser. In the fourth book, the main character, she is like someone who's coming to Starshine Valley from like the outside, which we haven't really had a character like that before. So she's kind of coming out of a really bad breakup. So she's very grumpy, and then her love interest is like very golden retriever. So it's kind of like a golden retriever boyfriend and a black cat girlfriend energy. So that was really fun. And but yeah, I think the challenge does come that I don't want to feel like I'm doing the same thing with every book. I want them to feel very different, and like each character to be different, and like their situations and romantic scenes and things like that to feel different. So in a way it's challenging, but I kind of like that aspect of challenging myself as a writer to try and come up with new scenarios or new types of characters and dynamics and things. I think I enjoy that as a writer, kind of being challenged in that way.
Yeah, I like that. Because there is so many tropes out there, and so many new ones come out every so often. So you got a lot to go with.
Yeah, there are a lot of, I think, like micro tropes that are really fun to include, but like like big ones, or either like I like draw a blank when I'm like trying to come up with them or something. One that I do really like that I haven't done yet is like fake dating, or I really like an arranged marriage trope. So those are possible ideas for the future. Or I also love like forbidden romance. There are a lot of good ones to choose from.
I'll say to our audience, if you have any suggestions, do throw them in. But no, so obviously you write this cozy fantasy and you've got other romances. Do you find it hard switching between each ones? Or do you generally find it the same?
Yeah, I actually like kind of moving around in different genres. So I actually also have another book coming out in August called Rider of Dragons. So that's actually set in the same world as the Baby Dragon series, but it's not a cozy story at all. It's kind of more like classic romantasy. And that book actually follows a character that you'll have met in the Baby Dragon books. She's the love interest from the Baby Dragon Cafe, Aiden. It's his younger sister. So when you meet her in the Baby Dragon Cafe, she's like 19 years old, very much like the pampered younger sister. But in Rider of Dragons, now she's all grown up. Her baby dragon is all grown up, and it follows her journey, kind of trying to forge her own path, kind of away from like her parents' expectations. And she's partaking in the illegal dragon races, which you kind of catch mention of in the Baby Dragon Cafe, but they're not like explored fully. So in Rider of Dragons, you do get to explore that, and it's a lot more like fast paced. There's like higher stakes, there's more danger. There's like a little bit more spice in that book as well. So I actually thought it was really fun going from, because I had written the Baby Dragon Bookshop and then I wrote Rider of Dragons. So I think by the time I wrote the Baby Dragon Bookshop, it was like the third cozy book that I had written in the series. And then I had two other young adult cozy fantasy romances out, the Witch's Guide series. So the first one is A Witch's Guide to Love and Poison, and then the second one is A Witch's Guide to Love and Deception. So I'd kind of written these 5 very cozy books like in a row. So then it was really fun getting to switch to a more intense and kind of like dangerous story with Rider of Dragons. But after I finished Rider of Dragons, then I went to working on the Baby Dragon Flower Shop, and it was really nice to kind of come back to the cozy story. So yeah, so I actually I enjoy going back and forth between the two. I think it keeps it really like fresh, and it feels like new whenever I go back to it.
Yeah, and obviously when I was really excited when the Riders and Dragons got announced, because at that time I thought movies were stopping at 3, and I was like no, but no, it's amazing. Like, and because obviously it's the same, some of the same characters are in it. Still nice, like you've not left them completely. You're still within that, not that world, but the people, and so I like that little connection.
Yeah, and then with Rider of Dragons, now you kind of get to explore like this more like dangerous and darker side of Starshine Valley, which obviously you don't see in the cozier stories. And you kind of also get to see like the baby dragons when they've grown up into adults and how they behave in that way. You will catch like cameos of the characters from, you know, the baby dragon books in Rider of Dragons. I tried to kind of sneak that in there whenever I could, just because I know readers who have, you know, been following me from the beginning, I wanted to have, you know, a little gift or like a little hint for them in that way.
Oh well, I'll look forward to reading when it comes out.
Thank you.
Lovely question in from Lucy, and she's put, do you have a favorite place to sit while you do your writing?
Ooh, literally where I'm sitting right now. This is my writing desk in my bedroom. I don't have a formal office, but I can't, I'm on my laptop, so I can't like turn the screen around, but I have a really great view of like my backyard. So yeah, so I love sitting here because after staring at my screen kind of all day, sometimes it's nice just to like look outside above my screen. And I have like a lot of like trees in my backyard. In the spring, we have like flowers. In the autumn, it's really nice with the changing colors. So I think it helps me to like recenter and helps like my eyes to not hurt as much. And sometimes you really do just have to like touch grass or look at some greenery.
Yeah, I get that. And then we've had another question in about the Riders of Dragons. Your new book series, will this take place in the same world as the CAF, or is it brand new universe? It's no, we just talked about that, haven't we? The Rider of Dragons is the same world,
Yes.
but darker side of it.
Yeah, so it is the same world, but it's kind of just like exploring a different part of that world that you haven't really seen before in the Baby Dragon Cafe.
Amazing. Well, so I've popped on here. What's one of your favorite scenes like that you've wrote through the series?
Oh, it's so hard because I love so many. But I think I really enjoy, I'm trying to think. Maybe I can do one from like each book.
Yes, actually I did put the book, but I didn't want to put the pressure. So feel free to give up from the book.
So I think in the Baby Dragon Cafe, I really enjoy this scene where Aiden kind of takes Saphira to this like area where she can see like her favorite flower. I thought that was like really sweet. I just think it's nice when like male love interests pay attention to what, you know, the female love interest is saying, and then put in effort to kind of like make these special dates or special moments. And then in the Baby Dragon Bakery, I think the Baby Dragon Bakery is the most like angsty out of the three. So all of my favorite scenes are like the really like angsty ones. And the Baby Dragon Bakery, there's a scene where Theo kind of gets injured playing football, and afterwards Lavinia is kind of like tending to his injuries. So I really liked writing that scene. And then in the Baby Dragon bookshop, I really enjoyed, there's a scene where Emmeline kind of gets like tangled up in her dress, and Luke kind of comes and like helps her disentangle herself. So I really liked writing that scene. I thought it was really fun.
Yeah, one of mine from the bakery is, it's not really a scene, but the scrunchie, the significance of the scrunchie.
Yeah,
How it comes back up like later on. Like,
it does.
yeah, I like that little connection. That was one of my favorites. But I think the first book will always hold a special place because like I love that relationship, like, and how it formed. So yeah, that's a lovely one. who is your favorite romance in the series?
That's so tough. And now that I've written, all three and they've been released, people do ask me that a lot. And I always feel like I shouldn't choose because it's like choosing your favorite child. But I do think that I love Theo and Lavinia's the best. I just love like their history. They are, they've been best friends since they were like 7, 8 years old. And I think that level of like familiarity and like closeness, I just love that between them. And yeah, so I think they're my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I even find it hard as a fan trying
Yeah.
to because they all have so many like different qualities that makes it lovely. But I love how he's a part of their family and like
Yeah.
food, and I just love that little aspect of it.
Yeah.
Okay. We've had another question in. Obviously, we talked about why you enjoyed writing. You said you loved writing when you were younger. Someone sent a question in saying, why did you choose to write fantasy?
Oh, good question. I think when I was growing up, I mainly only read fantasy. I very rarely would read contemporary, but mainly fantasy was like the genre that I gravitated towards and that I read very widely in. So I think it was kind of just a natural desire to then kind of want to write books in the same genre as like all of my favorite books and kind of one day, have dreams of like having my book be like amongst those titles that I grew up loving and, admiring these authors of so much.
Do you find it so when you go and see your book on the shelf, do you find it really surreal?
Yeah, no, I think so many parts of it is so crazy. Even like, like on like social media and stuff, like some of like my favorite authors whose work like I'm like obsessed with and love so much. We're like mutuals, like we follow each other. Like I've been so lucky to have certain authors like even blurb my work. Yeah, it's very surreal and just very crazy. But I feel so honored and so lucky to be where I am.
Do you have a favorite fantasy author then?
Do I have a favorite fantasy
Author,
book?
sorry. Yeah, author or book.
Oh, of all. Oh, I'm so bad with picking favorites. I think one of my favorite like cozy fantasies is like the Emily Wilde series by Heather Fawcett. Those are so good. And like each book is so good. And I think as a series, it's like phenomenally well done. Growing up, I loved the like Clockwork Angel, the Infernal Devices trilogy by Cassandra Clare. And even now, like when I go back and like reread them, like they're so good. I love them. What other fantasies do I like? I think those are the ones that stick out at the moment. I've read like a good amount of like cozy fantasies in the past like few years. One that I read recently that I really enjoyed actually just came out last week. The Between Worlds B&B by Amy Mae Baxter. That one was really cute. Yeah.
Okay, I need another cuteness fix, so maybe I can
Yeah,
pop that one.
really
I've Emily Wilde on one of my bookshelf. I've just not read it yet. I've been trying to get around.
It's really good. It's like a bit like dense because she's like an academic, the main character. So it like takes like a little bit to get into, but I think as you're reading it, like for me at least, like I'm so like in awe by like how clever it is and like the details and like how like the author like created like all the stories and like the lore and the world and everything. Like I think it's very well done.
Amazing. Well, I might have to put it on my list.
Yeah.
So next one is if you could have your own baby dragon, what would you name it?
That's a good question. I actually now, even as I've written the 4th book and I'm going on to the 5th, that's something that I like struggle with, like coming up with like good names for the baby dragons. So I very often will Google like, like pet names, like, because I want them to feel like, like dragony kind of. So in the first one we have like Sparky, and then in the second one we have Biter. And then in the third one, the baby dragon is actually called Motu, which is like Urdu for like little fatso. And the story behind that was that when I was on tour for the Baby Dragon Cafe, one of my friends, we like met in person for the first time, and she brought me like a dragon squishmallow. Which was like, it was so sweet of her to like do that. And it was like such a cute like squishmallow. It had like, it was like really like fat like squishmallows are, and it had just like tiny wings. So I jokingly like named that Motu, and then when I was writing the book, I thought it would be cute to like add that as the name. But if I had one of my own, I do really like the name Sparky. So
Well, you did choose.
yeah.
It is hard when you think about it. I don't know what I would name my dragon.
Yeah. Also, I've never had pets. People are usually a little surprised to hear that because obviously like the pet baby dragons play such a large role in the story. But I never had like pets growing up. Like I've never had a pet as an adult. So I've never had to like name a pet.
Well, you did it. You've picked some really nice ones, and I love the meaning of the last one as well.
Thank you. And then I can give you a sneak peek for in the fourth book. The dragon is an Opala breed, so she's white. So her name is Snowfire.
Oh, thank you for that little sneak peek. I'm honored. I actually think this was one of my members of my book club that gave it me when I asked it when they are watching, and they said, "Where can I get a baby dragon?"
If only I knew, I'd have one myself.
We all would. We all
Yeah,
would.
we'd all have one.
I think I'm very good at training them, though. They do seem a little bit mischievous.
Yeah, I think it would be a full-time job to train them and watch them. I mean, even I think babies in general are. My sister had a baby. He's almost 6 months old now. And whenever like we like meet in person or like we FaceTime like pretty often, he's just like throwing himself like off her lap. Like he's just doing crazy things all the time. And my sister is always just like running after him or like trying to like cajole food into his mouth. Like it is truly like a full-time thing to manage any type of baby.
Yes, I can imagine. I can imagine. So obviously, you just talked about obviously your family. Is any of your characters inspired by family members or friends?
Good question. I think naturally when I do write, I try to pull like a little bit from real life just to create like genuine characters. I wouldn't say anyone is like 100% inspired by anyone. But I think with Emmeline, a big inspiration was one of my cousins. She's very much like the eldest daughter. And she's like a mother to all of her siblings. She's kind of always like, taking so much on and stretching herself very thin and finds it difficult to ask for help and things like that. So I was kind of pulling from that when I was crafting Emmeline. And yeah, I think I think something that I'm inspired by a lot is like in the like female friendship scenes and stuff, like Saphira, like Lavinia, Emmeline, like they're all friends, like you get to see them together. I think in those moments I definitely pull from like interactions that like I've had with my friends or like my sister or cousins, and kind of the feeling that I have when I'm with them. And I think platonic love like that, like the love between like friends and like your girlfriends, it's like so important and just as vital as like the romantic love that is in these stories. So I always want to like show that like the love of like your community or of your friends, of your family, and then also of course the romantic relationships as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the highlights of the series is it is like a found family, like through friendship. Yeah. How like even though we're focused on such one certain character's relationship, we still have little aspects of the other relationships coming in through the friendship circle. So yeah, that's definitely one of the highlights of reading the series.
Thank you.
If you could invite anyone to dinner from your series, who would you invite and why?
Ooh, to dinner, I think I will go with Theo, just because I would then tell him to bake me things, and then he could bring the baked goods.
It just makes some like things that I want to try. Even when you read the description, I'm like, I need to try that now.
Yeah.
So obviously you've written so many lovely books. What advice would you give to somebody who's wanting to start writing?
Yeah, I think you should write the story that you want to write first and foremost. I think so many times like you can kind of get caught up in like what type of story like is doing well like in the market, or like what like will like readers enjoy, or like just like a lot of different things. I think even like especially as like a person of color, like sometimes you have these kind of like qualms about writing about like your cultural identity, or like you know, different things in that way, because like those types of diverse stories like aren't sometimes as widely accepted. But I would definitely say just to, you know, focus on your paper. Don't kind of think about all of those things. Really just write the story that feels like authentic and genuine to you, and kind of the story that you would be proud of. I think then naturally, like that type of story will find its readers. I truly think that there's like, you know, an audience for like any story that like anyone wants to tell, especially if you're, you know, coming from a place of like authenticity and like just being genuine with your story. So yeah, so I would say just, you know, write the story that like you yourself will be proud of. Don't kind of change it based off of like others' opinions or what you think that other people will want it to be. I think at the end of the day, like something that like I tried to think about as well is like, you know, it's okay if like your book only like has one reader or like reaches one person. And like it's okay if that like reader or person is yourself. I think so much of, you know, writing these stories, it is like first and foremost like for yourself, and like you do it because you're passionate about it, because you love it. I think having a career as an author, like trying to break out into that type of space is so difficult, that like you can't do it like for reasons of like if you want like fame or like money or, you know, those types of things. Like you're better off choosing a different career then. I think writers mostly, we write because we love it. So yeah, so just write the story that you love and that you will be proud of.
Oh, I think that's some lovely advice. That
Thank
very
you.
lovely. Obviously being a writer can be, obviously you would have a reading rut sometimes. Do you have, what is your go-to if you find it a little bit hard to read, right?
So when I get writer's block, I think my go-to is usually to like reread some favorite books or like rewatch like some favorite like TV or movies, like basically engage with stories that like inspire me or that I really enjoyed. I think a huge part of the reason I wanted to be a writer was because when I read like a really good book, you know, that like feeling when you like finish a really good book and you kind of just like bask in it for a while. I loved that feeling, and I wanted to like recreate that feeling for readers. So yeah, so I think when I'm facing writer's block or kind of having difficulty with writing, it really helps me to like go back and reread a favorite book, or, you know, even like movies and TV, those are also stories. And you kind of get that feeling, and then you get that feeling again of like, oh, I want to like, you know, make my story like as good as this story was, or, you know, write a book like as good as this one. So I think that helps. I think as well, just engaging with those types of creative, you know, storytelling forms gets like the creative juices flowing. But sometimes that doesn't work either, unfortunately. But, you know, of course, I have like deadlines. There are times when I just have to like sit down and it's like pulling teeth, get just something on the paper. I think in moments like that, it helps to remember that like it's okay if it's bad. It's just good to like get something on the paper, and then you can always edit it later. I have this like almost every time, where by the time I like finish writing my draft, I've been working on it for like so many months and kind of like just been like so consumed by it that like by the time I finish, I'm just like convinced that it's the worst thing in the world. And I send it to my editor, and I'm always just like, I'm sorry, like I know it's like it needs work, but like I just need some like space from it. And then, you know, a month later or whenever it is, my editor will send it back to me with like notes and stuff. And when I sit down to like start editing it again, because like I've had that time away from it and I'm kind of looking at it again with like fresh eyes, so almost every time like I'll be rereading it and be like, oh, this is like actually good. Like I'm like it's not as bad as like I thought it was. So sometimes you do just need like a little bit of space from what you're working on.
But no, I think if you obviously like, when you're writing away, you kind of just, you like you said, you're trying to get it out sometimes, and so you instantly have that, oh, I don't think it's very good. But then
Yeah.
space, I would be exactly the same. I think I was like in the zone, but sometimes you just
Yeah.
feel it.
You sometimes do really need space.
Yeah. One of our members has popped in. What does your outlining process look like when you're writing?
Good question. It's so, I actually love hearing about other writers like writing processes, because everyone's is so different. So for me, usually I will have an idea, and then I won't kind of start writing right away. I'll actually usually like kind of just let the idea like marinate for like a bit. I'll kind of, you know, like jot down like little notes about maybe like a trope I want to include, or like a conversation I think characters should have, or, you know, a type of like scene I want to include. I'll kind of just collect like these little bits and stuff. Then kind of after I've been marinating on the idea for a bit, I will do a really quick outline where it's just like beginning, middle, end. Just like usually like one page where I just have like a very bird's eye like overview idea of the story. And then I'll kind of expand that into a little bit longer. And then I will go and break that up into like chapters and kind of just like have like 1 to 2 lines per chapter of like what's going to happen in that chapter. And it usually helps me as well to like, if I have like, let's say like a 75,000 word count goal for my first draft, and I'm like, okay, like maybe it'll be like about 30 chapters for in the first draft. Then I'm like, okay, like the first 10 chapters is like, you know, the first third, the like 10 to 20 is like the second third, and then 20 to 30 is like the third part, or like the 15th chapter is like the midway point. So I'll kind of have an idea of like, okay, like by, you know, like the middle point, like I want these types of things to have happened, and then, you know, in the ending, like these types of things to have happened. So then when I'm doing the chapter outlines as well, that's when I will go back to kind of my initial notes where I've written down like little tropes or scenes, or, you know, like snippets of like conversations, literally very random stuff. And I'll kind of go through and be like, okay, like where can I like put this scene like into which chapter, or like where would like this fit in? Then I kind of have a more rough outline where it's very like sketched out. It's not super fleshed out. Sometimes my chapter outline will literally just be like romantic scene, and then I'm like, when I get to it, I like think of what that romantic scene is. But at the moment, like that's just what it has. Or it'll just be like kissing scene, and then it's like later I will obviously flesh that out a lot more. Yeah. So then kind of when I've done that like outlining and prep work is when I will like go to chapter 1 and then start writing. I try to write pretty linearly, but sometimes I find myself like jumping around, especially if there's like a scene I'm like excited to write, or just like an idea that I'm like excited about that I want to like get the words on the page for. And I like edit a bit as I write. So usually when I finish my first draft, it's not like it's not too sloppy. But yeah, that's the general process.
I like the process. Do you ever find when you're like doing like, say you're just going about your day like normal, do you ever like ideas pop in your head and you have to jot it down?
Yeah, I constantly like on like my notes app on my phone, I'm like constantly like writing things down. I have like not a sketchbook, like a notepad next to like on my bedside table, because like a lot of times like as I'm falling asleep, I'll have like ideas, and then I'll like quickly like jot something down, and then in the morning try and decipher like what it is that I've written down, or I'll like jot something down on my phone or something.
Yeah, I mean I put everything in my notes, so I can imagine your notes. Is there anything that you've like thought of when you're writing that you've not included, and like you think you'll come back to?
That is a good question. I think even sometimes when I do write things, and then if it ends up getting edited out, I'm so like, I never want to just like delete things. I'll like save it into a different document and be like, oh, maybe I can like work this in like somewhere else, or it can be like a deleted scene or something like that. I'm so like, I never want to like let things go. I think though, usually my first draft, I like write less than like maybe what other writers do. I know one like author that I was talking to, she was like, oh, almost like every first draft that I write like is like 20,000 words, like too long. So then during edits, like I have to cut out like a lot of scenes. I don't do that at all. I'm the opposite, where sometimes even during a draft, like I will leave certain things like not as developed or like as fleshed out. And then during edits, like I'll go back and kind of like add more scenes, or like include like another subplot or things like that. So it's very rare that I end up having to like remove things. It's usually like the case that I have to like add things in.
I mean, I think that's a good thing, not being able to remove. I like not being 20,000 words over.
I know.
cry. I'd be like, no, I don't want to let go.
Yeah, I know. So
Oh well, I guess everyone has their own process, but that
yeah,
that's a really, like lovely way to do it.
yeah,
Breaking it down, jotting things down, but holding on to it just in case, just in
yeah,
case.
just in case.
Right. So you actually answered all my questions really well, so I'm proud of myself. So what are you currently working on right now?
So right now I'm working on the edits and things for the Baby Dragon Flower Shop as well as the Baby Dragon Tulip Farm. And then I'm also working on the sequel to Rider of Dragons. This is kind of like the first direct sequel I've written in a long time. Rider of Dragons is my 10th published book. And out of all of those, none of them are like direct series except for my first book was like a duology. After that, I've kind of written either like standalones or like interconnected standalones. So it's never been like one story continuing over multiple books. So yeah, so I'm working on the sequel to Rider of Dragons, which I'm really excited for, and I'm having a lot of fun with so far. But because, and it's been like nice to go from like the cozier stories to the more kind of intense romantasy. But with kind of the more intense stories, it takes like a lot more, I think, to like the way that things like have to be planned out and like the pacing and kind of just like structuring it all. It takes a lot more thinking, I think.
I've seen on your Instagram like art for it. When it, you know, when you like, I was like, straight away I was like, this is going to be like a good, like I could sense it with like the darkness. I was like, I can't wait.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
So obviously you've explained Rise of the Dragon already. I guess you're not allowed to tell us anything about the second one yet because you're still drafting. So I won't even. I won't even bother.
All just be spoilery because the first book,
Spoilers,
yeah, it's based off of where the first, it picks up right when the first book ends. So
so obviously you said you're working on them. Do you find it hard going? Obviously you said you're working on the flower shop, your novella, and that one. Are you finding it hard going between them?
So when I am working, I will usually not work on multiple projects like at the same time. I will usually have like, okay, if I'm doing like an edit, let's say I'm only focusing on that story for like the 2-3 weeks. And then once I've like completed that, then I'll move on to the next one and then only work on that for like however long. Usually it ends up happening that I like end up doing a little bit of like editing during like the drafting process. So like while I'm drafting the sequel, that's going to take me like 3-4 months or more. So if like an edit comes up in the middle for let's say like Flower Shop or Tulip Farm, then I'll take like, you know, a 2 or 3 week break from drafting the sequel and then just do those edits, kind of get it done and then go back to drafting. I can't like do more than one project like in one day or even like in the span of a week. I feel like I really like to like immerse myself in whatever story I'm working on. So I need that like time to kind of just be in that story.
Yeah, no, I get that. Like obviously you said earlier you sometimes need a break to get like out of it. I guess like editing in between like
Yeah.
kind of helps with that.
Yeah.
So you can leave a book. So out of all of your books, which one's been your favorite to write? That might be a hard question.
Ooh, that is also a hard one. I think also like whenever I'm writing that book becomes like my favorite. But I think in general, the book that I had the most fun writing and kind of was my favorite to write is I wrote a modern day retelling of Jane Austen's Emma. It's called If I Loved You Less, and that's set in kind of like a modern Pakistani American Muslim community. I had a lot of fun writing that. I love Jane Austen. I love retellings. And I think it was really special, like getting to write about like, you know, communities that I'm part of. And I love romance. So I think that one was the most fun.
Oh, I haven't read it, but I saw that it was a rewrite, and I was like, oh, I need to try it. So,
Thank you.
So if our fans have read Babe Dragon series, and obviously we know the Rider ones are out yet, what one of your books would you recommend them to read next?
Ooh, okay. So I think it depends what you're looking for. So if you like, you know, the contemporary romance feel of the Baby Dragon books, I would say to read If I Loved You Less, because that is, a contemporary romance. If you kind of like the cozy, like fantasy vibes, then I would say to read the Witch's Guide books. That's not like a contemporary fantasy romance. It's kind of like more like secondary world, like set in a different time, cozy fantasy romance type. And I'm trying to think what other advice. I have my first duology was kind of a more that is also like a fantasy romance type. It's like a bit more like it's set like in a Pakistan inspired like fantasy world. So if you kind of read the Baby Dragon books but wanted more like higher stakes and more kind of like angst and like an amped up romance maybe, then I would say to maybe read The Lady or the Lion, which is the first of that duology.
Oh, amazing. So I have got the Witch's Guide one. I think that's the name off the top of my head. How are you inspired to write that one? Obviously, you told us how Baby Dragon came in it. Obviously, we know you love reading fantasy.
Yeah.
Ideas inspired from that.
Yeah, so I think for Witch's Guide, so in A Witch's Guide to Love and Poison, it follows the main character. Her name is Bisma. She is kind of the eldest of what is called this group called like the Unwanted Girls, and they live, in the Enchanted Forest. It's very much like Peter Pan's Lost Boys, but like they're all girls. And I think with that story, the main thing that like really like kickstarted like my idea was I wanted to write this like cozy fantasy romance with like an enchanted forest and this like found family of like sisters, because I think sisterhood like plays such a large part in my life. I'm really close with my sister. I'm really close with my cousins. So I like knew I had like those types of things that I wanted to include. But like the thing that excited me the most about that story was kind of like the romantic dynamic. So Bisma is this very kind of like an outcast from society. So she's very like hardened and, kind of she's had like a kind of tough time like in life. And of course now she's like in charge of like all of these younger sisters basically. So she's very black cat and grumpy. And then her romantic love interest, Xander, he's this very like golden, like rich boy in their town, who's kind of never had like a hard time at anything. So I really wanted to write a dynamic like that, where it's very, golden retriever and black cat and kind of reverse grumpy sunshine. Yeah, so that was what kind of inspired that.
I've always like when I bought it, I was like, I love anything with witches in it. And I was like, I need to know the inspiration came from it. We've got a question come through. We've got, do you read your reviews? If so, how do you handle them?
I do not. I would say to any author that you shouldn't read your reviews. I think the thing with reviews is that it's so subjective. And I think it's a funny thing about being human that 10 people can say nice things to you, but if one person says something slightly mean, you're not going to remember the 10 nice things. You're only going to remember the one mean thing. And, it's the same thing with reviews. So I think, naturally and no matter what, not everyone is going to like your book. And I don't think there should ever be a book that like everyone likes, like if someone likes romance and fantasy and, cozy stories, like they might like my book, but if someone is looking for maybe like a very gory, like intense, thriller or something, like they might find my book very boring. And that makes sense. It wasn't kind of written for them. They're not the target audience. And I think with reviews, a lot of times people are just like mean for the sake of being mean, or not really like thinking about, how hurtful they might be being, or they might just candidly be expressing their opinion, which is completely fine too. As authors, they're like, your work is so personal to you, and it's like you spend so much time on it, it's like your baby. So I would say don't read reviews ever. I think even like for some of like my friends' books, I don't read their reviews either, because then I like get offended on their behalf. So yeah, I think obviously everyone is entitled to their opinion. It's completely fine. I just think for the sake of like your mental health, you shouldn't read reviews of your own stories. I love reading reviews of like other books. And sometimes like negative reviews actually like help me want to read a book. If like a review is like, oh, this had like way too much romance in it, I was like, okay, like I want to read it now. Exactly. So, you know, not all negative reviews are like necessarily bad. Yeah, just for your own stories, I would suggest not doing it, just because as humans, yeah, for some reason we are wired this way where we remember the negative things, and even if that negativity is a very small percentage, and you know, so many more people might be positive and nice, we just for some reason forget about all the nice things.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I'm reading, like, I go off kind of like what I see on my Instagram, and I also go off like what's like people have like raved about a lot. I very rarely read reviews,
Yeah.
but sometimes if I really love the book, I like find myself scrolling, and then when I find one that's like a negative, I'm like, what?
Yeah, I'm like, you're completely wrong.
Yeah, but like you said earlier, like there's a book out there for everybody, and not every book is for everybody.
Yeah,
And so I'm like, no, but I agree with you. I don't think if it's your writing, that's your precious. Like, you don't want to read the reviews.
for sure.
Amazing. So, oh, I had a dying question in my head and I completely forgot about it. Okay, I've remembered now. So obviously you've published 10 amazing books. What has been like a highlight of your like career so far?
Ooh, I think honestly the thing that like consistently brings me the most joy, and that is like the highlight, is like connecting with readers. I feel so lucky that, you know, even now I get to like chat with you and chat with your book club. I've been so lucky, like, you know, being able to go on tour for my books, you know, have like events at like Waterstones and Barnes and Noble and thing, and, you know, get to like meet readers who, you know, are so sweet and so lovely. I think that human connection is so special to me, even if like I just get like a message from a reader, like sometimes I'll get emails, and everyone is so, so sweet and so kind. It truly means like the world to me, especially because, you know, I spend so much time just like, you know, alone in my room writing these stories, and, you know, hoping that people will connect with them and people will enjoy them, and that they can, you know, hopefully bring like some joy into the world. And so it's really nice when I get to meet readers and they tell me, you know, such kind things, and, you know, they let me know that like my work like did like mean something to them. I think that's definitely a career highlight for me.
I must say I like how involved you are with your fans. Like I know, like I've obviously when like interacted through your account, you've always even liked the comments, and I always think an author who does that really values their readers, and so that's really nice.
Yeah, no, it means the world to me. I wish I could respond to like every like a comment on all of my posts and stuff. I like really tried to in the beginning, but now I just like I feel so bad because like there's so many people like saying such kind things. But yeah, it would just take hours, and
Yeah.
I've tried to limit my time on my phone now. But yeah, I try to at least like or respond to any direct messages I get. So yes, if anyone ever wants to direct message me, I always try to respond to those.
Oh, that's lovely. But now I can imagine you get like quite a lot. So
Yeah.
anyone would expect you to answer every single one. So obviously you said that you've obviously done lots of book tours. Did you like before you like when you went on your first book tour, were you like nervous like to start like being able to answer questions in front of people and then people come up and sign your book?
I actually wasn't nervous about that. I think I love talking about my books, and like I love like chatting with people. I think the thing that I was always really nervous about, like with any like a book events, was just like no one showing up. So as long as there were like 5 people there, like that was like a win for me. So yeah, so I like just love talking about books, and especially my own work. So, and I always get like such lovely conversation partners like you as well, you know, asking wonderful questions. So it's really, luckily, I don't get nervous about it.
That's, I mean, yeah, I can imagine like it, like you say, it's your favorite part is connecting. So once you're in there, you kind of in like your
Yeah.
little book. Have you got any like tours planned?
I am not completely sure at the moment. I know my team wants to send me on a few events in the US, for the Rider of Dragons release. And I think when I go to the Netherlands before that, I was trying to like do a few days like in the UK, like maybe in London or something. But nothing is confirmed. I definitely love, you know, touring and doing events. So I always like try to plan them whenever I can. I think for sure though, I will probably go on tour for the Baby Dragon Flower Shop next March. When I went on tour this year for the Baby Dragon Bookshop, it was like the worst week of weather like imaginable. It was so cold. It was like raining. I was just like, I will gladly come again, just like when the weather is like slightly nicer, please. So hopefully in March it's nicer than it was in February.
I live in Manchester, and I moved here like 6 months ago, and all it does is rain.
Yeah, even I had one day I think I had a day or a day and a half in Manchester, and yeah, the rain was just like on and off, and like I was like, oh, we'll just like walk. It's like a 10-minute walk, and then it started pouring, and I ducked into the first place I saw and got an Uber.
Yeah, that's definitely what I do. But no, that's so exciting. I can imagine it being like really tiring, obviously coming over from the like traveling over like to the UK, like yes. But what has been your favorite place in the UK?
Oh, that's too tough to answer. I think I've really enjoyed everywhere I've gone. I've been pretty lucky to like go to a lot of places. So on my first tour, we started in London, and then I think we went to like Leicester, Nottingham, York, Sheffield, Leeds, and then Manchester and Birmingham. I think on my second tour we did a similar types of cities as well. And then I've also been to like Glasgow and like Edinburgh. I love Edinburgh. I think it's so charming, and like I would love to just like live there for a few months. It like very much gets you into like the writerly mood. So yeah, so I really loved Edinburgh. But honestly, everywhere I've gone in the UK, I've really liked.
I love Edinburgh because there's so many bookshops. There's so many books.
So, and I love like the architecture, just like the vibes.
Yes, definitely. And obviously, I think so many people are known for writing their famous books in Edinburgh. So maybe it's got some like good energy.
I know. Yeah.
Amazing. So obviously you've been on tour, you've obviously probably met so many lovely authors, but who is your favorite author? Like not that you've met, but like in general.
In general, that's again too hard. I think as well because I like so many different genres. So like I really like romance, I really like fantasy, I really like cozy. One I think of my favorite authors, because I've read kind of almost every single one of her books, and she's written different genres, and I think she's done every genre really well, is this Australian author named Melina Marchetta. So she's kind of written like contemporary young adult, and then this like heartbreaking like literary adult novel. She has like a fantasy trilogy. She also has like a speculative young adult contemporary novel, and all of her books are like amongst my favorite books. So yeah, so I love her work.
Hey, that's one of my favorite questions to ask, is when you always get like, I always find myself like going and researching the author. Yeah. But okay, that's your favorite author. What is your favorite book?
Favorite book. So I think if I would base it off of the book that I reread the most, and like every single time it's like just as good, it would probably have to be one of like Melina Marchetta's books. So she wrote this book called Jellicoe Road, which is like a young adult like speculative novel. And then her adult literary novel, The Piper's Son. I've also reread that like so many times. And both books, like there's like certain chapters where you're like laughing really hard, and then there's certain chapters where I'm like sobbing. And it's like every single time. Like I read them for the first time now, like at least like 5-6 years ago, and I've read them like I reread them like almost every year, and like every year they're like just as good, and like I cry like just as much every time, and I like enjoy them as much every time.
I love a book that makes you laugh and cry.
Yeah.
Like definitely a good mix. Like I've just recently read Heart the Lover by Lily King.
Ooh,
And
okay.
it came out in paperback, and the ending I was absolutely crying at, but like throughout it, there's like little aspects that make you like oh, that's a bit strange, but I love that about it.
Yeah, you kind of get to experience the full range of like human emotion.
Yeah, definitely. I think back to your writing, do you think you'll ever like write any other genres?
I would love to. I think another genre that I enjoy reading is like historical romance. Evie Dunmore's books are like my favorite in that genre. Bringing Down the Duke is like one of my favorite books too. I've reread it a bunch. My thing about historical books in general, like I love them. I love like being immersed kind of and getting thrown back, and I love like watching period dramas as well. I just don't know if I would ever like have the commitment to like do that level of research, because obviously like with historical books like you have to do like a lot of research even for like small details. So I think I'd love to write one day. I don't know. Hopefully, like at some point, I just have like just like a huge amount of like free time, and then I can do a lot of research and then write it. I think another type of book that I would enjoy writing, maybe not like an extreme like mystery or thriller, but kind of something like adjacent to that. I don't think I'm clever enough to write a mystery. I'm always completely shocked by, any plot twist and kind of anything that happens in any like mystery or thriller. Even if like, and like the people I like, let's say we're watching like a movie or something, like my best friend and even like my mom, they're like, oh, I saw that like a mile away. So I think if I wrote my own mystery, like I would think I was being very clever with the twists, but they'd probably be very obvious to the audience.
Well, I'm with you. Like, I'm a big mystery thriller fan, but I can never ever predict.
Yeah,
never.
I can never connect the dots.
When I think I have, I'm like, no, I haven't. I'm so far off. So,
Yeah.
but I can imagine it being like, I feel like I would have to plan it out a lot more than.
Yeah, you definitely do have to do a lot of planning.
I just had a question come through. It actually strangely was a question that was on my head actually about the world building. How do you go about world building in the Baby Dragon series? Like, where did you get the world from?
I think I was inspired by like small town stories that I've enjoyed. So like, like the small town of like Gilmore Girls, so like iconic. Even there's this show called Heart of Dixie that I really enjoyed, and the small town in that is also like really cute. I just love like the sense of like community in small towns, kind of like everyone knows everyone, and like you're walking from like the bakery to like the cafe and like different things. I love that sense. And then I'm a huge fan of like nature myself, so I love, like hills and, being able to see the stars at night, things like that. And that's kind of inspired by like where I live. I'm like so lucky that we get to like see the stars at night. And there's like a lot of like greenery, a lot of like, just like natural beauty. So I wanted to include that in the books as well. And then the other world building, I think my main thing was that I wanted it to feel like a real place that you could like visit like in like this day and age. But just like with that added like whimsy and kind of magic of the baby dragons and that kind of fantastical like charm to it.
Obviously, listen, I don't want to really spoil any of the books, but it's not a spoiler. The third book, I was get introduced to another kind of type of creature.
Well,
Where
yes.
Did that creature come from?
Yeah. So it's mentioned in the first book that there's other magical creatures in the world as well. So the world has like dragons, chimeras, griffins, and phoenixes. So then in the Baby Dragon bookshop, yes, the love interest Luke, he is not like from a dragon family, he has a chimera. So I thought it'd be interesting to kind of explore that as well. And then kind of like the relationship between the two animals, and they don't really get along. So it kind of paired naturally and well with, the two main characters and them butting heads, and then their animals kind of also butting heads. In the Baby Dragon Bakery as well, there's a scene where they go to like the fall festival and they go on like a griffin ride. So I thought that was fun to include. And then, yes, I wanted the world to not just have dragons. I kind of wanted to have like a few different types of like magical animals. I thought that would kind of make it feel more real and fleshed out rather than just the one one type of animal.
Do you think you'll ever like, obviously we've got our world of the baby dragon, do you think you'll ever introduce characters from that side of town, I'll say, and have a love interest in that way, like expand?
That is a good question. I think I've definitely thought about it. I think I do keep coming back to the dragons though, because I have like more fun with them. And like I just enjoy them a lot more. But I'd never say never. I think it could be. And I think that was also initially why I had mentioned that in like the world, so that like that would be like a possible avenue of stories to explore in the future. That was kind of why I included that. So yeah, so I'd never say never. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. I like that.
Yeah.
We have a question come through again. If you weren't a writer, what would you want to do instead?
Ooh, good question. I think growing up, I had a lot of like different things that I was like, oh, this would be fun to do, or like this might be fun. I really like fashion. So for a while, I really wanted to be like a fashion designer. I think that could be really fun.
Yeah. I don't know what I'd do. I think I'd probably be a writer because I love
Yeah.
books. So.
I think growing up, like being an author was always my dream. So now, yeah, I never think of what else would you want to do when you're already kind of living the dream.
I'm like, I didn't really read as a kid. So now that I'm an adult, I feel like I missed out on all them years of reading. I want to read all the books I missed.
Yeah.
So I've got like some like nice little quick, obviously we've not got long until the end now. So nice little quick fire, they call them, questions to like end our little session. So a bit about you, a bit about books, I guess. So are you a coffee or a tea drinker?
I like both, but I think coffee.
Yeah. There's so many, you can have so many kinds.
Yeah.
A morning writer or a night writer?
Ooh, I do both, but morning.
Well, you've got amazing views. I bet it's beautiful in the morning.
Yeah. At night, I'm just in bed, so it's much easier to be lazy.
I know. I could imagine it being a little bit harder. Favorite romance tropes?
Ooh, I do love friends to lovers.
Friends to lovers. Are you a paperback, hardback, or a Kindle?
Paperback.
Yeah. No, and hardbacks. I like the look of them. I just can't hold them. They're too heavy. One word description for your book series. Oh, I'll give you two. That's a bit hard, actually.
Oh, okay. Romantic and cozy.
Cozy. Love it. A dragon rider or a baby dragon owner?
Ooh, I think dragon rider.
Yeah, a little bit of risk.
Yeah.
Character you would trust with your life?
Oh, I think Aiden. He's very capable and pays attention, and he's very caring.
Building on that one, a character you would absolutely avoid in real life?
Well, I don't think I would avoid any of them. I think maybe Lavinia, she has that tendency to overthink and, let her anxiety get the better of her, which I think would be tough, to kind of deal with in real life. But it's something that she, learns and grows past.
All I saw that question, all I had in my head was the characters that we meet in the new book. What that is not like that we push out straight away.
Yes. I thought you meant from the main characters, but yeah, in the Baby Dragon bookshop, there is a character that is bad news. Yeah.
Sweet or spicy romance?
Ooh, I think so. My favorite type of romance is when there's a lot of build up and tension. So I don't know if that would classify as sweet or spicy. What?
Mild.
Yeah, mild. Something in between. Yeah, I really like very angsty and tense scenes. Which I think sometimes do show up more in spicier books.
I love when it's a slow burn, when it takes a long while, you can see it brewing, and then
and you're just ready to scream, just kiss already.
Favorite writing snack?
Ooh, over here we have Girl Scout cookies, and I love Thin Mints. So I think even when I was in university, that used to be what I snacked on when I was studying. So even now, I just love a good Thin Mint.
Oh, I love that. Villain or hero?
From what aspect? As a writer?
No, it's no villains really. I was like, what?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like no, I don't even think I can answer that one actually. I love when someone's a bad boy but ends up being a good person.
Yes. I really like complex and layered characters. So sometimes you think someone is a villain, but there's more to the story.
Yeah, I agree with that one. If you had a dragon, what color would you have?
Ooh, I think the Opala breed. So they're because I just love opals, and I think a white, kind of snowy white dragon would be really, really pretty.
Yeah, really beautiful, definitely. Yeah. Ooh, a trope you secretly love but rarely admit.
Ooh, okay, this is gonna sound funny. You know have you heard of it was a Spanish I think Wattpad or whatever. They got developed into like these Amazon movies, and then now they're making the London version, the My Fault London.
Oh yeah, no, I do know this. I do.
Yeah, so they're like step siblings in that, which like it shouldn't work, but like I think those movies are like they're just fun. So
Yes, I know what you mean. I actually know what you mean. I was like, when people say that to me, like, do you know? I'm like, I really hope I do. But I actually did that. I was like, yes, I do know.
I love the actor in the My Fault London one. He's in the Buccaneers as well. So I don't know if it's as much like the trope as it is like the actors and like the way the story is. Because I think on its own, like a step sibling trope where they're like, you know, like literally step siblings, like it's like kind of weird and shouldn't really work. But you know, that forbidden aspect, the angst and the forced proximity of being in the same house, like for some reason it does work. But I won't admit that too much.
It's fine. I won't say it, but don't worry. Bookstore or library?
Ooh, I think I love bookstores more. Libraries, I love libraries. I go to the library a lot, but a lot of times they're very, very quiet. Versus like in a bookstore, there's more of that sense of like community, and you know, you can chat with the booksellers and get recommendations, and it's more fun to browse, I think.
Do you have a favorite bookstore? Obviously, you might have a little bit different ones to us.
Yeah, we do. So I actually really love all the Waterstones I've been to in the UK. I think they're like amazing. But we have an indie near me that actually recently opened. It's called Book and Mortar. I also love all the very clever names that indies come up with. But yeah, it's a really lovely place, and like the owner, she's like so sweet. So I love going there.
I think obviously, like the book world is getting like so popular. Like obviously, it's bookshops are becoming like so much regular. Like
even like the romance bookshops, they're so fun.
Yeah, romance. There's so many romance ones.
Yeah.
Like I can't wait for more little like cute. Like I love Waterstones, but I like cute nook ones like pop up around.
The indies, they're really sweet. And they have like a lot more like personality, and you can just tell everything is so like personally curated.
Frozen. Oh, I think sorry, you froze for a second. Then I apologize. But no, there's one that's open in Cheshire, which is near Manchester, and it's called Chapters, and it just looks adorable. Like I can't wait to try.
Yeah.
Happily ever afters, or do you think they're necessary or optional?
No, I think they're definitely necessary. If a book is like highly recommended and like everyone says it's the best thing ever, but I find out it doesn't have like a happily ever after, like I won't read it. I can't recover from like a book that doesn't have like a good ending. Like it 100% needs to have like a happy ending.
I'm trying to think if I've ever read a book what's like that. I've read books that end like very open. I don't think I've read one where it's not been happy.
Even the open ones, I'm like, it's not that open. I'm like, they end up back together. Like, I don't believe that it's open. Yeah.
You make a story at the end, you're like, yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
What is your ultimate comfort TV show movie?
Ooh, TV show. I love period dramas, so I love like BBC's North and South. I really love BBC's War and Peace as well. Yeah, so I love rewatching those shows. I don't really like too long shows. I like kind of like the 8-episode, 10-episode shows that you can rewatch easily. So yes, I love those. You said what was the other one? Comfort movie?
Yes.
Okay, comfort movies. I love the 2020 adaptation of Emma.
Oh, I've not watched it yet. Okay.
Yeah, it's very good.
Okay, I like a comfort read. Comfort watch time. What's your most emotional scene that you've wrote?
Ooh, so in the Baby Dragon series or in all of my books?
I don't even really. I mean, I think I'm trying to think in the baby series. There's not really many emotional ones.
Yeah, there's too many crazy emotional ones. I mean, I think in like Cafe, obviously, Saphira and Aiden both have like loss that they're dealing with. Aiden's lost his brother and Saphira's lost her grandmother. So that's obviously like emotional. But I think out of all my books, I have a young adult contemporary literary book called When a Brown Girl Flees. So that's about like a Muslim teenager who runs away from home kind of in order to find herself. And there's a scene in that book where she kind of reconnects with her mother. And like I like always cried when kind of writing that scene, and whenever I'd edit it or reread it. I think, yeah, like mother-daughter relationships can be so complex, but like they're so like raw and genuine too.
Yeah, oh, that sounds amazing. Right, well, we've got a long left now, so I'm going to say to anybody who's watching, if you've got any dying questions that you need to say,
Yeah.
this is time. But I'm going to end with like a question with, if you could recommend any book to me right now that you've been reading, what would you recommend? Like current read?
That is such a tough question. That I've been reading recently. So, I recently just read Better Than Revenge by E.J. Blaze, I believe her full name is. And it was so fun. It's like such a great romance. It's like a sports romance. They're both swimmers, and she starts dating her ex's rival, fake dating her ex's rival after her ex like cheats on her. And it was just like such a buzzy, like fun read. I was actually like I was on like deadline, so I kind of wasn't supposed to be reading until I had free time, but I just like opened it to like just like get a look at it, and I like finished it within like a day or like a day and a half because I was just like so obsessed with it.
I love books like that where you just think, oh, I'll just read a chapter and then you end up reading the whole thing.
Exactly. So that one was very good, and the cover is so fun too.
I love a good cover. Your covers are amazing. Like, do you have covers?
Do I have a favorite?
Yeah. Do you have a favorite, and do you get to say much in terms of what happens?
So, I don't get to say too much, which is funny. They usually kind of send it to me when it's like pretty much done. And then I'll be like, oh, can we like add a little bit of this or adjust this a little bit? Which is, I think it's because like it's such a big like title for the publisher, which is, such an honor. It goes through so many like approvals, to like, it also like has to get approved by like the CEO of like HarperCollins. So then I never want to be like, oh yeah, like the CEO approved it, but like I kind of don't like it. But no, I've been so lucky. I've loved all my covers. Out of these three, I think Cafe is my favorite. And it might be because that's like the original one, but I just love like the nighttime vibe of it. But actually, I've seen an early sketch for the Baby Dragon Flower Shop, and that one is actually my favorite. Like, it's so good. I can't wait to share it.
I can't wait. Then I turned around and looked, and I was like, yeah, there is like the contrast. Like, it's like seasons. Like, you feel like you could be in like a cozy. This one's more like spring.
Yes. And actually each book is set in a different season. So Cafe is set kind of like in the spring, then Bakery is set in the autumn, and then Bookshop is set in like the winter, and then kind of like the late winter. So yeah, so I think it's fun writing different cozy seasons, like, and kind of exploring like how each season can be cozy.
Yeah, definitely. I love when it gets to autumn and everyone picks up all the autumn books. Like,
yeah, I know. The vibes. So good.
Amazing. Well, it's been absolutely fabulous to speak to you, and a pleasure to ask you all these lovely questions. So thank you so much. I believe this is the second time you joined Chat 25.
Yes, I did one, I think, last year.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for back and speaking to us.
And thank you so much for having me.
Everyone's had a lovely time tonight. And we will of your books in the future, and we can't wait to read them.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone who attended and listened, and then if anyone's watching the recording, thanks for that as well. And thank you again for wonderful questions and being my conversation partner.
Amazing. Well, have a lovely rest of your day,
and thank you as well.
Thank you. Bye. And bye everyone else.
Bye.